at the moment, if you're sitting there as a law firm, firstly, you need to understand your competitors are increasingly offering something around the AI space to their clients. So I was reading yesterday on LinkedIn, somebody from Simmons & Simmons was saying that they've got probably 150 AI apps that they can offer, single use often, to their clients. So something like they will offer to a startup, they will offer to somebody going this, create the documents, perhaps closing documents. They'll do all these routine things really, really quickly. So the chances are, if you've got a sizable client, there will be somebody out there offering them what you think is a premium service at a pretty basement rate if they choose to look. And you go, well, Jamie, I've got loyal clients. They're not going to look around. Well, an example from a client last month who said to me, Jamie, I've got a client. We do about 100 grand a year with them, and it's not a big firm, so it's a sizable client. Yeah. And they said to me, we've now created this contract. You'd normally charge us about 3 grand for it. We'll give you about £300 just to review it to make sure we're okay, because there's not a lot of work left to do. And that created that existential dilemma. So do you go no, because that's undermining all your work and your value? But then you think to yourself, but then they'll go somewhere else. And that might be a law firm who they begin to use for my other work. Do I go yes, and then they begin to think about all the other things that they're charging me for, I'm charging them for, and where is the next cut? So that's the client's now coming to you with solutions rather than you being in the front foot and offering it to them. And that creates a challenge. And my third thought is around just put yourself in your client's shoes. If you're working for somebody who regularly gives out work, their title is something like lead lawyer or lawyer, in-house lawyer, they are now under intense pressure from a budgetary point of view to deliver savings because the CEO has heard that AI should make these things cheaper. And often this is a very small operation, 1 or 2 lawyers you're serving. They don't have the resources to look at this. They're expecting you to give them the answer. Now, if you're on a panel of 3 or 4, the one that comes to them with these innovative ideas, the ones you probably promised, by the way, in your pitch, you'd be innovative, you'd be different, that's the one that they're going to be drawn towards, because they're going to be offering such a huge difference in service because of getting that grip of this, that you're no longer in the races. It's not that they're just undercutting you by 5 or 10%, or they offer a better lunch or go to Twickenham more often. Fundamentally, they'll have the client's attention because they've said, look, we need to change the way we're doing our business here. Yeah, we still want 100 grand from you, or perhaps we'll go down from 100 to 80, and we can do so much more. Bear in mind, a lawyer in-house doesn't necessarily want to spend less. If they spend less, next year they get less budget. What they want to do is achieve more for the same spend. So if you can work with them with that agenda, there's a huge advantage. So if you're not, so think about your poor client, what they want. Remember, if you're not doing it, somebody else is doing it. And there's that huge thing about just that competition coming from other firms. It's huge at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting to look at from the side of the perspective of those CEOs. Like there are a few people that I'm interacting with, and what they're telling me is they're like, look, I do a lot of contracts, for example, and I started creating routine contracts with AI, and they're good enough. And I'm not going to pay $750 an hour.
Okay, and the challenge is, I think, for you as a lawyer, is to identify the places where they definitely need a lawyer. Say term sheet. Because if you're a startup, that term sheet really matters. Then you can identify the ones where probably something fairly stock, DEI policy, that's probably standard. The difficulty is in that middle ground, say employment law. You think that's trivial, so you just run something off. Actually, locking in your best employees, thinking about share ownership, with a startup in particular, is huge. And there's a danger if you as a lawyer, or you're not talking to somebody who's strategic as a lawyer, you're not going to understand the bits you need to pay attention to. So we move from being document producers to risk assessors and advisors. In the UK, the lawyer used to be the man of business. Before accountants rose up, who were just bookkeepers. Your lawyer was your man of business. Your one you went to chat for wise advice. That's GC, General Counsel. the wisdom we're looking for. So that is the direction that we need to think of ourselves, that to the extent we can move upstream and sit alongside our clients and help them decide what can be done in-house, what can be done outside by external counsel, what doesn't need a lawyer at all. That's probably where we are moving towards if you want a long-term viable career.
Yeah. And if you're thinking of it if you're thinking strategically, it's going to put you into a strategic position.
Absolutely. But you then really have to know your client. Now, you work with startups, you begin to understand what startups are. You get into the smell of startups, you understand it. That's your niche. And then you need to understand and get better probably at listening to understanding. Paradoxically, AI is really good at training you to do that. You can set up an AI bot or whatever to be a client. So you can practice, because everybody thinks they're great at asking questions and listening. Nobody. It's like being a driver. Nobody admits to being a bad driver. But you can get better. And that skill we sell trust. That skill of asking good questions, getting the client to trust you with the real answers, allows you to give a solution which identifies and mitigates risk. So you've moved up market. If at the end all you're being asked to do is produce documents, you're in competition with a computer which has infinite knowledge and can do everything at a speed that you couldn't even imagine. And so you're competitive. You don't really have a role at that level.